Well, hello. Hello there. Welcome. Welcome. Yes. Sorry, I had a little bit of technical difficulties. I just wanted to situate myself. So for today, I'm going to teach you 2-point perspective, the basics, a beginner's guide, whatever you want to call it. So before I start, I'm going to have some water because I'll get a little bit of a little parched, a little tired. I'm not tired. I'll get thirsty. I won't get tired. Why would I get tired from talking? Anyways, I am not going to keep doing a do-over. I keep resetting and like I set the standard for what an art tutorial is going to be, and I'm not going to edit it like I'm used to doing. Is I never edit my videos. Which is a good and bad thing. They're raw, they're nice, they're real. It's bad because they can be very awful at times. So, today we're going to talk about 2-point perspective. Now, what we talked about last time, we brought up some terms regarding 2-point perspective. And one of the terms was we needed a... I forgot this. There we go. We got this little guy right here. This guy right here. I need this guy as a demo. So the things we started off with perspective, especially with 1-point perspective, was starting off with a horizon line. As I said before, it doesn't matter where you put the horizon line. It could be up high, up low, right, or in the center. It doesn't matter with regards to perspective. It's all about what vantage point you want to be. So if you have the horizon line really low and you have objects floating up here, right, you're going to be looking at the bottom plane of that object, right? Or if you have 3-point perspective, then you're looking at it at a different vantage point. Or we call it worm's eye view, right, where you're basically your position of your eye is looking up, and you're looking up in a perspective point of a worm, essentially. And if you decide to put the horizon line... Did I get it flipped? I think I may have had it flipped. I'm not sure. If you had the horizon line up high... Yeah, up high. Then you're looking down in a bird's eye view. I was trying to picture it in my mind with the angles. So I had everything right. But the context was kind of skewed because I was not visually seeing it. Anyways, that's another thing that we got to deal with some other time. I don't really care about that. What we really want to deal with is 2-point perspective. And in 2-point perspective, what you need is, just like before, you need a horizon line. And as I said, you're going to find a lot of redundancy with my rhetoric, my language, but it doesn't matter. That is par for the course. So you're going to need a horizon line, okay? Now, as I stated before, it doesn't matter where you put the horizon line. I always, by default, put it in the center, especially if you're beginning. It's always easier to put it in the center because there's less variables you got to deal with. And there's usually more questions you need answered if you start repositioning the angle or the area that you put your horizon line. So for this instance, we're going to put the horizon line in the center. And last lesson we talked about the CVP, which was the central vanishing point, right? I think I got the... Nope, we want this. The CVP, which was the central vanishing point. So CVP equals central vanishing point, right? So we have the central vanishing point. Now, where you place that is always up to you. But for this exercise, I always like to place it relatively in the center, right? Because it's just easier to manipulate and work with for this exercise. Now, you don't have... The CVP can be... let's go use a different color so I don't get mixed up here. The central vanishing point can be here. It can be here. It can be here. It can be here. It can be here. Here. It can be anywhere on the horizon line. It doesn't matter. It's going to yield the same result. Okay? Now we're going to add two new things. So as I said before, last class or last exercise, little demo that I had, we had the horizon line or the eye line. So we had the horizon line or the eye line like before. And then we talked about the central vanishing point, which we used for the 1 point perspective. Now we're going to implement two more areas or two more points for our perspective. And that's going to be special vanishing point left, special, it gets pretty technical, vanishing point left, and special vanishing point right. Right? So you have SVPL and SVPR. Now, where you put those points is up to you again, but for the sake of simplicity and for the sake of being able to transfer new techniques to further newer lessons later on, it's better to have the special vanishing point left and the special vanishing point right equidistant from your central vanishing point, right? So I'm going to do a quick measurement. Let's see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my special vanishing point left and my special vanishing point right be 10 inches from the center, or from this central vanishing point, okay? It makes it easier when I use this distance for later on, because you got other elements that we want to talk about later in future lessons that will transpire or will transfer over better than if you just kind of randomly place your special vanishing point left and right in wherever place you place it, right? If it's randomly placed here and you want to do something like you want to define your cone of vision, that's something new, further along that we're going to talk about, not today. You won't be able to do it correctly without having your measurements correct. So I'm going to do 10 inches from the center or central vanishing point, or close to. Right? So now we have our special vanishing point left and special vanishing point right. SVPR and SVPL. So, or you can just put left and right vanishing point. It doesn't matter. It's just it's like over technical. Or you can just call it left and right. It doesn't matter. So we have our left vanishing point and our right vanishing point. We have our central vanishing point. Now what we need to discern is we need to basically discern the center. So we need to kind of, I'm going to use my little straight edge here, or right angle little thing here to, we need to know when our shapes are on the left or right of our central vanishing point. So we need to know when our shapes are on the left or right, because that's going to be key to certain angles that you do, or certain lines that you make later on with your shapes. Okay, so in the last lesson we talked about the front plane, the top plane, side plane, bottom plane, back plane of our shape, right? So in 2-point perspective, both our shapes, both planes are now side planes. Okay, you're no longer going to have a front plane facing the viewer, right? It's not going to be the closest. It's not going to be parallel to the viewer anymore, right? Is it parallel? Parallel is like this, right? Anyways, I always get that mixed up. It's something I always deal with. So the front plane of the shape is no longer be facing you. You're going to have the edge, and we're going to call that the leading edge, and that edge is going to be facing closest to the viewer now. And now, I'm going to give you roughly 2 ways to kind of make your perspective. Actually, there's like 2 or 3 ways. It depends on how you kind of start out your forms, okay? So what you want to do today for this one, for this like shape that we're going to start off with, is we're going to start off making our shape using the leading edge of the object. Now, here's where everyone gets kind of hiccuped on. They're like, how tall do I make the line? It's like, well, that's all arbitrary. That's all up to you on how you decide to make the line. It doesn't matter the height. Like, all it matters is that you're making a line. So what I'll have is sometimes you'll get this question, should I make the line this tall? That's fine. Should I make the line this tall? That's fine too. It doesn't matter. All this leading, this line, the height of this line, it just determines the height of the object. It's just the height of that leading edge. It's irrelevant how long or tall you make it. It's just going to determine the height. It's not going to like make or break your shape that you're making or you're creating, okay? So, we're going to use this as our beginning form, okay? So I established the height of the object, right? Using a vertical line. Again, the height doesn't matter. That's all arbitrary. Now, how you start your 2-point perspective is you're going to be activating your special vanishing point right, and special vanishing point left, right? You're going to be activating them. You're going to be using those points to create your creating your left and right plane of your object. And so since you determined the height of your object to be right here, the top of the object and the bottom of the object to be right here, you're going to basically make a line of convergence towards your right vanishing point and then your left vanishing point, right? So you're going to have a line of convergence that goes towards those 2 points, okay? And it's going to look like this. Right? So you have a line of convergence toward the right vanishing point on this shape here, or not even a shape yet, it's like an obscure triangle, yes? And now you're going to do the same on your left vanishing point, right? Okay? So essentially what we have now is a fence that goes to infinity, right? It just keeps on going to the horizon line, on the sunset, so forth and so on, right? So now what we got to do with this information is we got to define the edge, the back edge of that object, okay? Now, how do you define the back edge of that object? It is all up to you. I hate leaving all these weird variables for you, right? But in the end, the size of that shape or form you make is all arbitrary, okay? So what you do, man, is you drop your marker like that. You want to. That's actually key to perspective. You want to be able to drop your marker on, specifically at that time, right? At this time, after like the 10-minute mark, you got to drop all your markers or drawing utensils that you're making your perspective from, okay? So now you got to determine the right plane, the right side plane, and the left side plane of that object, okay? So I'm just going to arbitrarily do a right side plane here, okay? Doesn't matter. And now I'm going to make another vertical line on this side. Boom. So now what we have is we have our left plane and right plane or right face of that block shape that we have. Okay? Now we need to figure out how to draw that top plane, right? Because we're looking down on it, yeah? How do we do that? Well, pretty easy. Once I get all these darn markers off my easel here. So pretty easy. So what you have to determine the top plane of that object is you got to determine you got to recognize where these lines intersect through the top line, right? So this line, right? So you got to determine where these vertical lines have cross paths between this top line. And it's fairly easy to determine that once you do your vertical lines to establish the back edge of this shape, right? So it's right here and right here, okay? So this is where things kind of get a little tricky, okay? You're basically going to be doing a zigzag. You're doing a crisscross, right? Like that band, I guess. So you're going to be crisscrossing your shapes, okay? So, on the right side of your shape, you're going to go the opposite direction, crossing through your central vanishing point and leading up to your special vanishing point left, okay? And then on the left side of your shape, you're going to be crossing over towards your special vanishing point right. So you're basically crossing. You're making a giant X. Okay, you're making an X in the back. Right? I was a little off there. Okay? So now what you have is you have your cube form minus all this other stuff. So now you have 2-point perspective. Okay, now what I like to do is to kind of just outline it, make it look all nice real quick, do a quick outline so you can kind of see the shape. So I'm just making sure that I got the shape all correct. So now we have our shape, okay? So how we do that again? Fairly easy, right? So let's start by doing, I know I said I was going to do multiple ways, but I think this is the best way to do it, right? The other ways are really confusing. The other ways is basically you're basically going reverse. You're making lines from the special vanishing point left and special vanishing point right, and you're making the like triangle forms, and then where the lines cross paths is where you determine the leading edge. That is a little confusing. We're just going to keep going with the leading edge method. I think that's the most effective. So we're going to do another shape really quick above the horizon line this time. All right? So we're just going to make a line, an arbitrary line, doesn't matter. Okay? That's our leading edge. That's the edge closest to you, the viewer, right? Now what we do from there is we get marker all over your finger. That's what you got to do. You got to get marker on your finger. The only reason why I'm using markers is because I'm afraid that if I use pencil or something like that, you're not going to see it. So now, grab this marker. Since we determined the top and bottom of that object, or the front edge of our cube or block or brick or form, or whatever shape, rectangle, block, form that we have, shape, rando shape, we're going to go and make our little obscure triangles going to special vanishing point left and then special vanishing point right. Right? So now we have basically the left plane or left face of that block or form that we're making. Now we're going to go across our central vanishing point down to special vanishing point right and make our other face or side plane of that shape. Right? So now we have our fence going to infinity, basically, or a wall going towards infinity, or whatever analogy you want to kind of supplant in there. It's all good. So now what we got to do is we got to... I'm throwing markers everywhere, just like my own, like a studio that I have. Apparently, I just throw stuff everywhere and I lose them. So now what we got to do is we got to determine the edge of that object. Again, it's all arbitrary, but I'm going to make like a rectangular block here. Okay. So I'm just going to randomly place the edge of this. So now we got the left side or left face of that object. Now we're going to do it again on the right side. And sometimes when I get in these situations, sometimes I'll call like these front faces or these planes the front plane of the 2-point perspective, because to me it feels like the closest. It's the closest to the viewer, right? It's closer to the viewer than the left plane is, and sometimes I'll often mistake that. All right, so now we got the height. We determined the edge and form of our object. Now we got to determine the bottom plane of the object, because we're looking above it now, because it's floating. It's above the horizon line. We got weird Mario Brothers floating bricks in space, and we got to jump on top of them to get a flower that allows you to shoot fireballs out of your mouth. Whatever Nintendo reference you want to use. Anyways, so we got to determine the bottom plane of that object. Very simple to do. Since you know the back edge and the front edge right here, you know where they cross paths, yes? You're going to use that information to determine the bottom plane, okay, just like before. Okay, so since this edge is closest to the right vanishing point, it's going to move towards the left vanishing point. It's going to cross. It's going to zigzag. It's going to make an X. And since this left back edge of the object is closest to the left vanishing point, it's going to go to the right vanishing point. So it's basically crisscrossing. It's going the opposite direction. Okay? I don't think I have a long enough ruler for this. I'm barely able to make it. So now we have an object in 2-point perspective floating above the horizon line, and we're wondering why this block is floating in space, and we're like, why is this doing that? I don't know. Who knows why? That's what I've done. And so we have a block floating in space. Congratulations. So I'm going to basically outline it so we can kind of see a little bit better. So one thing I probably should do more often is probably plan out a script, because Well, because when I do live sessions like this, I make so many errors. For those that know me personally, they'd understand. So now we have two shapes in perspective. Sweet. All right. Okay. So that is how you do two-point perspective in its most basic of forms, right? So what we've to kind of review what we talked about. We're going to reiterate the past definitions. So we had our horizon line / eye line. We had our central vanishing point, which can be placed anywhere on the horizon line / eye line. We established the new points, which is the special vanishing point left and the special vanishing point right, or VPR or VPL, or just vanishing point left or vanishing point right. It doesn't matter. We just getting really fancy with the special word on it, tacked in front of it. And then we talked about a new term, as opposed to having the front plane, top plane, side plane, bottom plane, back plane. We've brought up a new term, which is called the leading edge. So sometimes I might refer to the leading edge, would refer to the edge that's closest to the viewer with regards to two-point perspective. So that is it for today. Hopefully I didn't stumble my words as much as, well, hopefully I didn't stumble my words too much, and you actually got something out of it. I just want to wish everyone a great day. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And don't forget to don't forget to that should be on a blooper reel. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and sign up for my newsletter. I really appreciate your support. Thank you.